My name is Lor Holmes. I live in Revere, Massachusetts, and I work in Dorchester, Roxbury with CERO Cooperative, where I am the general manager for our worker-owned commercial compost services co-op. I knew something about zero waste, but started using the terminology of zero waste shortly after I came into this job, actually, to start a new worker cooperative in 2012. And I attended a workshop about zero waste. And it was like a light bulb of making total sense to me that, no, it wasn't about recycling, it was about reducing, all those kinds of things that you get to. Interestingly, for my story is that my job at CERO then was startup manager. And my charge from the co-op members was to help figure out a profitable business plan that our members had the skills to start up that would be recycling focused, some kind of green jobs is what we wanted to make. And I went to this zero waste conference and about the same time learned about the DEP waste ban on organics requiring diversion. And so very quickly kind of landed in that place of commercial compost services would be a really good fit for our co-op to pursue, and that's what we've been doing ever since. When any family or company or municipality starts thinking about zero waste, um, the easiest rotting low-hanging fruit is the organic waste in our waste stream, which is, depending on what kind of an entity you are, it's anywhere from a third of that waste stream to sometimes over 50% of what's being thrown out with the trash is organic compostable material. What's super great about this is that this is not trash. This is a resource. When composted, organic material, um, it, it produces rich, beneficial, nutrient-filled food. The whole soils of the planet can be replenished by recycling our food waste into that soil. And then on the converse side, by diverting it away from incineration and landfill, the breaking down process of organic material produces methane gas, which is one of the most highly toxic greenhouse gases that we need to be actively reducing. So it's terrible in landfills. Some of the landfills have begun to try and recover some of those gases, but it makes much more sense instead to separate that material before it goes into the landfill and compost it to reap all the benefits of that. And as far as greenhouse gases, when you return this organic material into the soil and into the earth, it literally becomes a carbon sponge. It does the opposite effect of what it does when it emits. It sucks in and mitigates those toxic carbons and turns them into really fabulous plant food. Because things take a long time. Um, Essentially, just like with recycling, any kind of source separation of the materials we bring into our homes and then want to get rid of from our homes. We're unlearning a lot of bad habits from being a highly consuming, highly throwaway culture. Um, I think most of us have come to understand that that's not sustainable. Um, and we try to maybe reduce our consumption. And wouldn't it be great if we can get to back all the way upstream to producers and not have that stuff um, put there in the first place? But when it comes to organics and picking up by the curbside, it's another system. It's another container on the curb. It's another material separation that needs to take place in the home. Slowly, the diversion of organics is taking off. I think a lot of this is the pressure of waste processing and making waste goes away is getting much, much more expensive for cities and towns. The landfills are full. The incinerators should be all shut down. No new ones should be built. In some places, um, we have instituted the bans on new incinerators and landfills, which is the right direction to be heading in for zero waste. Um, and so curbside composting is going to come. I personally favor um, localized drop off. I think that might be one easy way to start getting people involved. You know, it's hard to promote the idea of having a trash truck go around to people's neighborhoods, having a recycling truck go around to people's neighborhoods, and now having another truck that is coming to haul away the organics. So I think we need to rethink the entire system. Um, in my mind, to have compost systems set up where your farmer's market is, or maybe even, as a receptacle that could be within a quarter mile of everyone's house, there could be a compost bin that could be, put in a place where it's not going to bother anyone, kept clean and tidy, be serviced by trucks in ways that won't bother the community, and be, a cost-effective way of collecting the most compost that we can. Well, you could call it a form of composting if you consider composting being a controlled way of breaking down organic quote unquote waste. Anaerobic digestion is a form of composting. If it's particularly if it is a dedicated system, that not like the wastewater treatment plants, which are anaerobic digesters that more people tend to be familiar with. But anaerobic digesters that are dedicated to food and potentially manure or yard waste are closed container. They can be anywhere from backyard size to industrial size. Um, can serve, entire communities, or can serve smaller areas. But basically, they are favorable for more densely populated places because they take less land than traditional composting. This is more of a vessel, a closed-in container. There are microbes inside that a lot of AD advocates call the bugs, and they're beneficial bugs. You put the food waste in there, the bugs eat it, breaking it down, and the closed vessel is a place where you collect that methane and contain it. And so once you contain that methane, you can convert it into electricity, you can convert it into renewable natural gas. It's a completely renewable, clean power source. So in my vision, every neighborhood, or say 2 square mile radius, you would have a digester that's a community scale digester is what we favor the most, which would be something that can be put in place on something less than an acre of land. There's a lot of ways of getting it to fit into the urban areas, and a lot of places in Europe are doing this already. You can reduce all the carbon used to transport this material, reduce that as much as possible, and then you're providing the collection and recovery services of this tremendous resource at the local level, and then also the ancillary benefits, which are the energy production I described. You can put 10 pounds of food waste in and get the equivalent of 1 kilowatt hour of power for processing that food waste. You also get a gallon of liquid digestate, which is a miraculous plant food. One way of thinking about an anaerobic digester, in fact, is as a mechanical cow. It's a place where the food goes in, it's in a closed mesophilic, which is about body temperature environment. The bugs break that stuff down, you collect the methane, comes out the top as a gas, out the bottom comes this liquid digestate, which can be dried into fertilizer pellets. That's probably the most commercially viable way of using this material. So that's essentially compost in another form. Just because something is compostable doesn't mean it will be composted. So this is something that we work with a lot because generally the people who promote and produce and sell and purchase compostable ware are trying to do the right thing. These are polycarbon materials that are made from corn a lot of the times, but there's energy-rich production required to produce them. So you're using electricity, you're using fossil fuels to produce these. They're much more expensive to purchase than plastic, so that's a barrier for people. And the truth of it is that in the compost process, they don't break down for the most part. Food scraps, even paper, coffee filters, more simple organic materials break down in a relatively short period of time, say 6 to 12 weeks, depending on the processing capacity. I have gone into a hot, high temperature compost pile at an industrial composting facility, and you pull out a handful and you get rich compost. There might be a little bark if there's wood in the compost, and then you'll have completely identifiable forks, the cups, the bioplastics cups and stuff like that. So the point is most operators of compost processing facilities do not want them, do not really favor them. I don't have a problem with the science continuing to try and make a more compostable material, but we really try to work with our customers to go to reusable ware as much as they can. I know I carry around a set of bamboo utensils in my backpack that I love. I can pull them out, I can wash them when I'm done, and they're always there. It hasn't been a difficult habit to develop. And so we really need to go in that direction. Some of the difficulty is how do we define composting? So we know that we're trying to reduce food waste. We know that what we want is for people and animals to eat excess food before we divert it at all. Once we divert it, let's make sure that it's re-earthed. Let's make sure that that material is processed in a way to make it suitable as that resource I described earlier in the conversation that can replenish our soils, that can mitigate carbon just in applying it to gardens and landscapes. And there's so many places that we can use compost in beneficial ways. Unfortunately, in a rush to develop more infrastructure and having a waste industry with a lot of its own aging infrastructure, we have some false solutions cropping up. And the one I'm most familiar with is the use of these wastewater treatment plants as a receiver for compostable food waste. The problem with diverting food waste to wastewater treatment plants is what you're doing. Instead of composting the food waste to return to the earth, you're actually commingling it with everything that's that's getting flushed down the toilet. And so you're turning the food into sewage rather than doing any beneficial improvement of any of the material. I mean, honestly, if we really believed that that was the right thing to do, we would start telling people to flush the food waste down their toilet. The reason why we can't do that is because people will know more quickly that it's a bad idea if we do that. It would overwhelm our aging pipe infrastructure. When I first came into this industry, That was what was being promoted until the Water Commission started saying no. But now there's an awful lot of trucking and a lot of capital being put into collecting organic waste in the city, using a lot of energy and water to slurry that material, pump it into tanker trucks, burn a lot of diesel fuel, taking it from one environmental justice community to another environmental justice community where the wastewater treatment plants are located, dumping it into the tanks, combining it with sewerage, having an output that is not as regulated as it needs to be, because we know from working with scientists who have evaluated the sludge that comes out, what I described as digestate in anaerobic digestion. When you put sewage in anaerobic digestion, you still have all the pharmaceuticals, toxins, heavy metals, all kinds of chemicals that I wouldn't want to put on my food growing crops. I wouldn't want to put it in my yard for my kids to walk on. Um, so so this is an area where we don't have enough regulation. I fear that because that's a fast solution, and the wastewater treatment plants, because they're seeing this, they're seeing dollar signs. They get paid for whatever material pulls up in a truck and unloads. So they see a profit model in it. It's not profitable for the environment. It's not profitable for something that could be much more of a localized circular economies and much more decentralized, and have much, much more benefit. So I hope that we will pursue those solutions and work with policymakers who will come to see the light and help us develop a much more networked, localized, decentralized food waste processing infrastructure. And the solutions for that are all at hand as well. I would say that everybody individually can divert your compostable material. First of all, when you start paying attention to that, you start being a better shopper and you start saving money at the grocery store because you try and reduce how much you're wasting. I process my food waste in a backyard compost bin. I know not everybody can do that, but there are subscription services that people can purchase affordably, and these are folks with by bicycle or van or truck will come and pick up your compost on a schedule that you choose, whether it's weekly or monthly, um, and you can get your food scraps composted in a really good way, and you can also be the beneficiary of getting soil compost rich soil products back from most of the companies. Will also deliver that composted material back for you to put in your own garden, which is a good solution for the individuals. But I would encourage everybody in this challenge to start talking to the places where you spend your money. Start talking to your grocery store. Start talking to your where you're getting your takeout food, or where you're going to your outdoor venues to buy some good food and support our restaurant industry. Most of the businesses in the state are not diverting their compost. And what you can tell them is that, some people, a lot of businesses actually save money because when they start composting, they can reduce their trash bill. What you save in that usually can more than pay for the service to have your compost picked up. And then you also know that you're doing the very best thing for your environment. I think that businesses respond to their customers, and so I hope everyone will go to all the businesses that you frequent that give you food or beer, or where you buy your groceries, and ask them, are they using a local compost services provider? Are they diverting their compost? You really hope that they will.